quickly. So you have shared that thing on my timeline?
Yeah, it's coming through just now.
Okay,
So
okay.
once you get a message, just share it in your Sangoma before we start.
Perfect, perfect, no problem. We can go.
Anybody who's viewing in the process, and then you can just join in.
Lovely. Now we can go.
Okay, we are live, and please share it in your timeline, and then we can proceed from there. Thank you.
Is it there? Okay, give me a second.
Okay, can you please make sure that your video is on so that I can see you?
Yes, just give me a second. I'm trying to share it on in my group.
All right.
It doesn't give an option of sharing, but let me.
All right, thank you very much and welcome to my show. This is Dr. Gumede. This is my podcast show where we talk about issues in relation to health matters. And thank you for joining us as you join us wherever you are. And I've put in this page on Dr. Seanego. He's actually going to be sharing it into his Dr. Sangoma page on Facebook. So if you just give us a minute, we will be with you very shortly to discuss one of the amazing things that has ever been discussed in an open. I know that many people like to talk about a lot of things, but today we are going to be looking at a topic around traditional healers and really bringing in Udogotela, who's turned Isangoma, to be the one that is telling us about his experience in his process as we move forward. So in a second, please join us as we proceed with this interview. Dr. Sangoma, hello. Sawubona, welcome to the show.
Buenos dias, hermano. Good morning. Togozan and Lisedi.
It's a great pleasure to have you on the show. And I'd like to greet all the viewers of today's live Facebook and Zoom platform. And welcome to my post. Obviously, this is the show. Show's name is Dr. Gumede Talks Health. This is a new show we are doing today. And this is our third episode that we're doing. And in the past podcast, we looked at population control in South Africa. This is a podcast is still available to listen to in the Podbean platform. And we then looked at the role of traditional healers in the modern society. And this topic in particular received a lot of attention. And I would like today to have a one-on-one interview with Dr. Seanego, also known as Dr. Sangoma on the social media platform. I would like to say welcome, and please, would you be able to tell us more about yourself and who you are, where you come from, and how did you end up becoming a Sangoma?
It's a pleasure. It's actually an honor, not a pleasure. It's actually an honor to be invited to this great show. And by a legend like yourself, I look up to you. I've always looked up to you. I've always looked up to you. I remember my first experience of you, or my first encounter of you, was back in 2006.
Correct.
I had just arrived in Cuba. I met you and a few other comrades when you came to welcome us in Saguala Grande. You were with Dr. Nodi Mzu. You were with Sanele Madika. You were with Matsubani Lekalakala.
Correct.
And from there, I knew that there was hope. And somewhat, I knew that this podcast was going to happen. And I promised myself that I'm going to be invited to this podcast one day.
Well, thank you very much for coming through. It's a great pleasure to have you around.
Great. So, in short, to answer your question, it's quite a broad question, but it depends where you're asking me. If you're asking me from a spiritual perspective, my answer will be completely different to if you're asking me from just a physical or a modern context. It will be different, because if you ask me and ask who is Dr. Sangoma, from a modern context, I would just say to you, I'm a medical practitioner who studied medicine in Cuba and currently studying under training to become a cardiothoracic surgeon, but with the aim of one day taking the skill back home to where we need it the most. I think you know very well that being a Cuban graduate yourself, the message has always been about plowing back to the people that need it the most, which is the poorest of the poor. So this is how I would answer you if I'm just a physical being, you understand? But if I'm involving myself now as a Sangoma and as a spiritual person, I would just say I'm a meeting point. I'm a meeting point. How? I'm a meeting point where I'm a place actually where both the future and the present as well as the past meet, because I'm a result of the past. I'm a result of my ancestors. I'm a result of the prayers and what destiny as well as the society as well as the universe has decided that I am going to be. So basically I come with problems of the past, and I'm a place where the past, the present and the future together meet to come with a solution, because my position is that we agree that you cannot change the past.
Correct.
But at the same time, the past will shape the present.
Yes.
And that will come and give us a future that we seek to see. So myself, I'm just a place. I'm just a point where I'm able to sit, because within myself, I'm able to sit with myself and ask myself, what kind of a future do I envisage? And what am I doing in the present in order to get that future that I envisage? But I learned from the experience of the past to look at those who walked this path before me, to say, how did they do it?
Correct.
And with that, then I do not take away the fact that the present has got much more weight, because the material conditions of the time dictates on how we react to a situation. So for now, spiritually, you can just call me a meeting place.
Hallelujah. It's a meeting place, correct?
It's a meeting place.
I would want us to dive deep into that meeting platform. I want us to go into that boardroom where this discussion and a conversation is actually taking place, to really understand the depth of your understanding of the social, economic issues, the health matters, which we in health call them the social determinants of health. Those are all the things that affect how much we actually then end up being whether alive or well, and also driving in and drawing an inspiration from the definition of health from the WHO, which is health is a state of well-being, but both socially, physically, spiritually. Yeah. So we're talking about spiritually in the definition of health, but how much of that have we actually used in the translation of how we deliver healthcare services in the modern society? It seems to me that we have almost left some part of the what I will call the concept of health to chance, whereas we are going with the physical part and the physiology and all the other things, and actually just ignoring the rest of the definition that really defines what health is in our society. And as you were speaking, you actually spoke about something that actually brought to me a remembrance of a term in Spanish, si el hombre vive como piensa o piensa como vive, which translates to say, does a man live as he thinks or does he think as he lives? Which is a very philosophical question, and you can answer it anyhow. But when you say that it actually depends how you look at yourself and where you are now versus what happened in the past, how the issues of the past are able to influence the issues of the present. And all of those things to me are actually ticking as you discuss them. But just to move forward, I mean, we, the African people, are seen to move away from our roots. And we have adopted the European style of living and have abandoned our culture and traditions. How do you think this is actually impacting us in terms of the state of living and how we live our lives as African people?
You know, Dr. Gumede, it's very funny because if you look at the statistics, especially of health as well as education, of countries that are still very much traditional and cultural, you'll realize that the amount of deaths as well as the social ills are less than those of countries that has been westernized, if I might call it that way.
Yeah.
You can even go into the West itself. It's only those countries that are superpowers that have got means of production that are able to then manage themselves. But those countries like ourselves, who have decided that we are going to be copy and paste of other people's and their systems, we are struggling quite a lot. I love the fact that you and I were both trained in Cuba. Cuba is a very poor country in terms of the GDP. Yeah. But in terms of its healthcare and the survival of its people, it's doing way, way better than your first world countries.
Yeah.
And if you go back and look at their system, you would realize that their system is rooted deep into spirituality, into understanding of a human being first before you can do anything, into understanding that you as a human being. I always say that the physical you, the you that I'm looking at, does not even constitute 10% of you in totality. You are a spiritual being. You are a biopsychosocial being with economic needs. And if any of these are affected, then a process that is called disease, it is going to come out. Yeah. And how does that disease manifest itself? It can manifest itself physically as well as it can manifest itself spiritually. So then, therefore, if you are a provider of health yourself, then you need to understand all these fears that come and determine you as a person and as Dr. Ntlagane. Because sometimes you come with a headache, but it is not a headache that was caused from something physical, but it is expressing itself physically. So if you're not able to understand that and you are not able to align those things, then it means you are not giving a complete care to your people. And that is the secret that the Cubans have mastered, because you and I know very well that before you even start with your clinical years, you do philosophy. And there is something very funny. Their philosophy is orientated towards the Cuban communism.
Exactly.
And the Cuban heroes. Because at the same time, they are teaching you politics, but they're teaching you their own culture. Except teaching you their own culture, then they're teaching you Western medicine. And therefore, they're producing a complete human being who understands culture, who understands tradition, but at the same time, who understands science. That is something that is lacking when it comes to South Africans. Instead, we are training machines. You and I are just machines, my brother. Yeah. I'm sorry to say that. We are machines. Our job is just to say, oh, okay, in the book, they said that a headache that is caused by an increase in a raised intracranial pressure will present in this way. And therefore, this is the management that we provide. And it ends there. Why is it that we do not formally so, gladly so, and publicly so, accept that
hey,
why can't I do it?
We have a fear of being judged by other people. We live our lives in a way that we fail to embrace our culture and traditions because we are always wary of what other people have to say about what we do.
And sadly enough, you as Dr. Gumede, you are going to be judged by Mrs. Gumede. The very same person that should be giving you the support, the very same person that looks like you, is the very same person that you're afraid of. And funny enough, is the very same person that is going through the very same crisis and the very same problems that you're going through.
Who?
So we are people that are sick, the both of us. We are looking at the next one, laughing at them that they're more sick than us.
Yeah. Dr. Sangoma, in my previous podcast, I highlighted the fact that modern medicine and in the modern society, they have alienated the traditional medicine, citing issues like the lack of safety and the lack of evidence in its effectiveness. How much do you agree with this statement that we need to have evidence-based outcomes before we can embrace our traditions and our way of life and treating the disease?
What method are we using now to treat our illnesses and diseases? We're using science.
And the moment we're using science.
It's science absolute.
It's not absolute. It's still science.
So what happens to that other percentage? So because now we are able to come and say in a study, the muestra that we took was 90% representative and whatnot, what happens to the 3%? It shows that we're using systems that it shows that we're using both systems that are not absolute themselves. Even the Bible says, "He who does not ever sin, let him be the first one that casts a stone." But with all that said, with all that said, aim of health is to first not do any harm. Primum non nocere. So therefore it means that if indeed, because you must understand something here, Dr. Ntlakanipo, as well as the viewers, Ubungoma is a small fraction of spirituality. If you're not spiritual, you will not be ethical. If you're not ethical, you will just give anything because you know that you're going to receive money at the end of whatever it is that you're going to do. But if you're spiritual, you will understand that your duty is to first do no harm.
First do no harm.
No harm. So for me, the issues of ethics and the issues of dosages and whatnot come from the fact that we must first acknowledge that we are spiritual. I must first acknowledge that my job, my primary purpose is to make sure that I save your life. More than you giving me anything in return to thank me for the services that I've provided to you.
So it means that to some extent, we embrace the same ethics and principles. It's just a matter of how we do them.
Exactly. Actually, the principles of spirituality are way even better than the ones of Western medicine. Because Dr. Ntlakanipo, you will not see me if I come to you and I do not have a medical aid and I don't have money. You will not even say hi to me. Actually, I will speak to your secretary. But when you come in Dumbeni, I don't have a secretary. You speak to me and you say to me, look, when I'm the visitor, ask him and Minangna ima. Nizobuya nzokanyisa later. But can I kanyisa to you later?
Sure.
So if we're going to talk about ethics and understanding of human nature and understanding of poverty and being empathic to the other person, who's more empathic?
So it does mean that actually, to some extent, we are also depriving ourselves of being treated like human beings and not being seen as these objects of generating income for other people to live better lives. And if we could actually embrace our culture, we stand a chance.
That is why sometimes you and I are guilty of calling patients by their diagnosis, not by their name. That is why sometimes you and I are guilty by not knowing where does mama come from and what does mama eat. You remember when we were doing Salud Pública back in Cuba, we were talking about a ser social and when we're talking about the estilo de vida and all those things. We wanted to understand that it is very important where you stay, who you stay with, your marital status, what you eat, if you've got running water, if you do not, because those, they affected your state of being. Does that happen today? If anybody was to come today in Charlotte Matleke in a quaternary institution, do you as a doctor, do you as a medical provider sit down with them and say, how can I help you?
Sure. Obviously, when you come, I mean, it's you already have a referral letter that somebody has written to you to say, this person has 1, 2, and 3. I want you to invest your time and energy on 1, 2, and 3. And to some extent, you know, the issues around, you know, how you deal with issues in terms of the social aspect of where you live, where you come from, how you live. Actually, we see this thing in our practical life, even in our hospital, when we look at patients who present to our facilities with TB, for instance, tuberculosis. And we know that this is an infectious disease where people who live together, if one has it, chances are that everybody's going to have it, until you ask the question about where they live, how big the house is, you know, how is the issues around ventilation. You are never going to be sorting out the problem, because this person that you're treating is going to go back into the same environment again, and you'll be treating this person all over and over again, and then you would wonder what has happened.
Why are we having so many cases of young boys and girls in our locations on drugs, and they've got complications that are related to IV drug use and nyaube? while supposedly a system that we're having is this perfect. It's because a system that we're having cares about whoever is bringing the money. It doesn't care about saving a life. It wants patients to come. It doesn't want patients to stay home. Cuba wanted it. We wanted not to have the disease. We wanted to control the disease before it even started. That is the same thing that China is happening. And these are the countries that are practicing a medicine that is cultural orientated.
Correct.
And traditional orientated.
But now you tell me, I mean, you have a broader understanding of, the modern medicine, and your upbringing and your training as a medical doctor has enabled you to understand this modern medicine. But at the same time, you are actually embracing your culture through accepting what I call a gift, isipho that abantu abadala, amadlozi, have given you to actually embrace. How are you able to navigate between the modern medicine and the traditional healing? Whereas we know that there are a lot of red tapes in between the two. How is that going for you? Does amadlozi actually agree with you when you actually treat people ngesilungu?
First of all, I always say I do not have a gift. I am the gift.
Hallelujah.
As such, me being the gift means I've got the ability to swim across the both worlds. I will not say with ease. It's quite hard because you move from one element or one dimension to the next. It's quite a bit difficult, especially when I'm in the Western medicine type of world, because I don't want to say sadly, but I will say sadly. Sadly, in the world of amadlozi, you are not in charge. You don't think for yourself. You just do as you are told to do. That's why you are the gift. You don't have the gift. They control you. You don't control them. So now,
I've had that understood. You've explained that very, very well. So you are the gift. It's not that you are being given a gift.
No, I was not. Because if I was given this gift, then I could use it to my own pleasure. I get it's mine, you've given it to me. But because it's me, then it means there is some force that is using me for whatever the purpose is.
Okay.
Thank you. So now, as I was saying, because of that, it makes it a bit difficult, especially to cruise through the Western medicine world, because I'm actually dependent on them. Sometimes when I'm busy with a patient, they can just decide to come and say, no, other than the issue of the appendix, this guy has got an issue with 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we demand you to tell him right then and there. But now the problem is, remember, I'm an employee. I signed a contract, and there is some codes and conduct and some rules and regulations that needs to be followed. So it becomes a bit of a challenge now in that case, because now, I again, like you said, because of how the society views Ubungoma, then one can come. I don't know how one is going to interpret that. Possibly one will accept it with a pure heart, and the next person might take it, and the next thing I'm called at the CEO's office that I'm busy practicing some rituals or some witchcraft, So that is where the problem then comes into play, to say, then how do I then deal with that? And I must say it's quite difficult because, like I said, I take orders. If they say I need to tell you, I need to tell you. I must not beat around the bushes with it. So it is a bit difficult, but I've sort of managed to get a way to be able to pass the message across without passing the message across. You understand? Because at the same time, I need to make sure that all my sides are covered.
That is very interesting. A couple of years ago, to be precise, in 2019 in November, I had a chance to visit China. And on my visit to China, we also were taken to visit some of the Chinese traditional medicine hospitals that were there. And they operate almost the same as the modern medicine hospitals. Do you actually think that there's something that South Africa can actually attain? What would make it difficult for these to be achieved in our country?
Our worst mistake, Dr. Nhlakanipho Gumede, especially as the current government, when we took power from the previous regime, we wanted to separate culture from politics. It is through politics that the great King Shaka Zulu remains as relevant, yes, even after his death. It is through politics. But he did that because he was cultural in approach. He practiced his politics, but he had the basis of culture. So we wanted to separate the two things. That is why we have one day in a year, we call it a culture day.
Yeah.
In a country that is South Africa.
An African country.
In a country that is Africa. I am allowed to wear his pig or that head or whatever once a year. And I must take pictures and do hashtags and show that I'm proud of myself. So out of 365 days, I'm proud of myself once. Out of 500, it doesn't make sense at all. Then it means we have delineated from ourselves.
Yeah.
Now that is where the first mistake began, because then it meant that when you start to lose yourself, nature does not allow for any vacuum. When you leave yourself, somebody must come in. Somebody must start thinking for you, must start reasoning for you, must start doing all these things for you. And currently where we are, you and I, we are not ourselves. We are actually having an out-of-body experience. You're sitting outside of yourself, looking at yourself. Because the Nhlakanipho Gumede that you are today, the doctor that you are today, is not what your grandmother envisaged. When your grandmother prayed, because we're a result of the prayers of our grandmothers and our mothers. When they prayed, they asked for a doctor that was going to be compassionate about its plight, about his people and the plight of his people.
Yeah.
They didn't say you should not go stay in Sandton. They said go stay in Sandton, but keep in mind that you've got a family in Alexandra. And make sure that you get that family in Alexandra out of that situation. Because they acknowledged that they did not have time. Yeah. They acknowledged that there was an arrival of other forces that took over their powers and their control. But they prayed that when you were born, when you were raised, you would come here and be able to provide solutions to the problems that they could not have provided solutions to at the time. So now what... The fact of the matter is that you and I have failed them. We are failing them. And that is why consistently you always sit down and remember your grandmother.
Yeah.
What happened to that gift?
Yeah.
If that thing is within the bloodline, within the family, what happened to it? Because you must remember the spirit is very clever. It's very intelligent. If you remember the Witchcraft Act in 1960 something when it was implemented, Sangomas and the spirits knew that we are going to starve here. We will not do what we do, which is to help people. How must we do it then? And they started creating churches. They went into churches and called them African spiritual churches. You had your ZCC being born. You had you understand what I mean? Or if they were born before, you had us invading those churches. That is why today, Renalabo Porofeta, are they different? No, it's the same thing. Moya is the same thing. Moya wants to work, and Moya will find a way to practice itself. And when the time is correct, Moya will come and say, now I'm tired of practicing this way. Now I can practice this way.
Yeah. So you did mention something that was very interesting, to say that actually in all of this, Umoya is in charge, and it's not any physical being that can ever be in charge. It's always the spirits, Umoya, that actually governs how this process actually takes place.
I always say, I fear not or do not get angry at a man who looks at me and insults me. But instead, I get worried about those who walked this earth before him, because it means they did not teach him anything. I worry about those people that are within you, because, like I said, you are just a meeting point.
Yeah.
So if those people that are in you as a conference room, allow you to look at me and belittle me, and belittle those millions that are walking behind me, why must I be worried about you? I must worry about them.
Exactly.
So Umoya is the one that is in charge.
Is the one that is in charge. That's a very interesting point. When we come back to you as a medical doctor, I mean, you actually operate within the confines of the modern society and the modern hospitals. What has been your experience in the response from other people who know about you being Sangoma, both in your hospital, but also at the community level? Are they treating you any differently? Are they engaging you any differently? Are they despising you for embracing your culture? What has been your experience in this?
My advantage is the fact that I'm educated to a certain degree, right? And therefore, in my cycle, I've got a lot of people that are quite open-minded, which has made it a bit easy for me to, again, get back into the society and still manage to be myself and still manage to do my duties, but still keep my status in the society because of the people around me. Also, the fact of the social media right now, we have everywhere you can see that people are slowly embracing themselves. It even looks fashionable. So some of these people would end up doing it for fashionable reasons, but at the end of the day, it's something that is slowly being accepted. It is very funny that I feel more at ease when I'm when I'm in the suburbs than when I'm in the villages. Because still in the villages, they still have got that mentality that if you are a Sangoma, then they can't speak to you. You can't have a conversation with me. I can't hold my wife in public and kiss her or spank her. You understand what I mean? They believe that they take you, and most of them still believe that Sangomas are they are witch doctors. Because of the lack of this information. You understand what I mean? So you do get a lot of these challenges, but the reason we're here and we're having this conversation is because we want to demystify. We first acknowledge that our people are what they are because they are a product of a system that was made, was designed to make sure that they look at themselves and they hate themselves. So now it's our duty to make it look like, look, you can be a Sangoma and have an ordinary life. You can have a girlfriend, you can have a wife, you can have a career, you can do great things, because we were told that no, that was primitive and you could not be part of a modern society if you still practice those voodoos and whatnot. There was a point that I actually forgot to mention when we were talking about China. Is that when you're looking at them, their politics, to begin with, their politics are culturally orientated. They are about the Chinese people, for the Chinese people, in preserving the nature and the culture and the tradition of the Chinese people. But at the same time, they are not oblivious to the fact that they live in a modern and changing world. So they have decided that they're going to make themselves competitive. And the only way to be competitive, they decided that they're going to invest in themselves. The best investment is investment in self, not in any bank or any what investing company. Is in self. If you can invest in yourself, you are a better asset than you are if you have invested in another bank. So China and the Chinese people decided that they were going to invest in themselves and in their culture. In the modern day society. That is why their economy, at the same time, they say they're a socialistic country, but at the same time, they've got capitalistic policies. Because they do not want, we are going to be we will not be honest to ourselves if we want to say we must shut down white people and throw them into a sea and throw them and send them back to Australia. We will not be honest to ourselves. White people have naturalized. The Europeans have naturalized into South Africans and into South Africa and into Africa itself. And they have brought in their culture. It is okay. Societies have been moving from one culture to another throughout time. This is not something that is new. We can't do anything about it. Now, the thing that needs to...
that is an interesting point. You know, as you speak about this, and I'm thinking, and I can't really stop to actually mention this, is that, you know, you seem to be actually saying to the people and the listeners that are listening that we can still be modernized, but still embrace our culture in the process. If I'm understanding you correctly.
In essence, I am still saying that you can still go to work with your animal skins and whatnot, looking all beautiful, and take a picture. You can still come to Sangoma, to Dr. Sangoma, and still do a check-in and say live at Dr. Sangoma. Just came for a washout because I thought, man, my spirit was not okay. I needed some spiritual alignment. You understand what I mean? Spirituality its job is to offer solutions to our current problems. So if our spirituality cannot offer solutions to our current problems, why do we need it? If it cannot answer to the questions of that young lady who is found somewhere in Magau, who does not even have a future, who's struggling with a baby because she had a teenage pregnancy, if we cannot offer a solution to that child as well as the mother and the family, then why are we existing?
Sure. So let me ask this question. Have you had any of your colleagues at work, you know, come to you on the side and say, hey, brah, can you help me with this? You know, I'm struggling with 1, 2, and 3. Is it possible to have a consulting session with you?
They do. I met quite a lot. And it's very funny. The majority of them are the ones that come to social media and bust and say all these things. But, you know, patient doctor privilege, we just look at you like, but doc, you were just yesterday. What is the issue there?
It's very interesting, you know, because earlier on we spoke about this, and you mentioned something that I think is lingering on my mind at this stage. And you said that abantu abadala, when they prayed when you were younger, they had envisaged something about you as a person. And maybe what you are today is not entirely what they were praying for you to become. So is it necessary for us to go back to our roots and really to find the purpose of our existence?
It's 100% necessary. You're very right. You see the problem with how a disease or an illness comes in, how a spiritual illness or disease comes in, is in the following. This is the pathophysiology. So there was a conspiracy before you were even conceived, right? So there was a meeting. So already a place was there. There was a meeting and there was a discussion that there must be a boy who must be born. And this boy must be born between these two families.
Yeah.
And these are the duties of this boy.
Yeah.
And there were people that were then elected to work as your guides, because they acknowledged that you being a physical being, you will not see some sides. Now, then we needed to create and come with other people that will watch over you. And those were your guides. What we will call your, what do we call it? Intuition.
Yeah.
And whatever, right? Those are the ones that make you see what you cannot see with your physical eyes. Right? Now, after that conspiracy has happened, you are born into a society and you go to grade 1 and the society teaches you certain things and you slowly delineate away from the true you.
Yeah.
You slowly go away from that first meeting, that first conspiracy that happened. You go away from it. Then as time goes by, the spirit, because it's the one that is in control, it starts shutting up. Your marriage does not work. At work, things do not work. You're trying to look for a job, nothing is happening. Because there must be somebody who must bless you with these things. And that is God. And God blesses you with these things because there are some people that are working in close conjunction with God who are interceding on your behalf. And those are the ones that are responsible for your spirit, and those are your ancestors. So we do not pray ancestors.
Yeah.
We give homage to them. We pray God. Umkhulu wabomkhulu.
Yeah.
So so we knew this person before the arrival of other people. We knew this person. We were always in contact with him. We prayed to him when we had pandemics, and he answered. We prayed to him when we have questions, and he answered. We prayed to him when we had famine and all that, and he answered. But suddenly, out of the blue, out of many, many years, this Mvelingangi is no longer necessary.
Yeah. So that's a very powerful sort of like interpretation of what is actually going on. And I'm reading some of my Facebook posts here, and Dr. Londa Gumede is saying that we must start by changing the term witchcraft because in itself, it is undermining our traditional healers. And you can't be a witch and be a doctor at the same time.
No. The question is, what is witchcraft? We can start by asking our fellow brother Ulonda Gumede. We can ask the help to ask this question and say, what is witchcraft?
Yeah.
Because you can be a witch without even using any motive.
Yeah.
You can kneel on your knees and pray that I get hit by a bus. Isn't that witchcraft?
It is, in a greater sense, it is witchcraft.
Because for me as a spiritual person and as an ancestor Sangoma, I will answer it and say this. Ubungoma is like a knife. I'm a cardiothoracic surgeon in training. A person comes to me on the verge of death with a very critical aortic stenosis. And I take a knife, I open their chest up, wide open. And then I save their life.
Yeah.
Then you've got a fellow brother Gukas, who takes that very same knife and takes it and take a life.
Hey.
So that is spirituality.
Yeah.
The very same herb that I take and use to save your life.
Yeah.
From the good intentions that I have is the same herbs that the next person takes and cause harm to you. So it depends which hands it is in. So witchcraft is neither here nor there. It is a subjective term.
Yeah. So why do you think that there is an association of witchcraft and traditional healers? And I'm saying this because we have formalized sort of like Isangoma, Izinyanga. On my previous podcast, I had made a distinction between what Isangoma is, the diviner, what is Inyanga, is the healer, and all of that. And these people can actually have these sort of like beliefs and how they work interchangeably. So what is it that is actually causing our society to even think that they can actually call Inyanga or Isangoma a witchcraft? I mean, a witch doctor.
The system. The system was never for us, but it had to be very strategic in approach. Because like you're saying, each one of us right now, when you say Sangoma, already all of us were thinking of a traditional healer. Everyone must be a Sangoma to be a traditional healer. And if you remember back, we go back to one of the things I said was that Moya is too big and Moya is vast and Moya can express itself in any form.
Yeah.
So it means Umoya can come and say, we Sangoma. Isangoma, Ngoma is from the word songs.
Yeah.
So this is a spirit that likes to dance.
Yeah.
That heals itself or heals other people through songs.
The chants.
You've got an inyang. That one is total. It does not need to dance. They could be inyangas that dance amaloko, but there are those ones that do not dance at all. Theirs is just to they work with herbs. And those ones, you can either go through the process of epiphany, or you do not need to go through the process of epiphany.
Yeah.
Or you don't need to put all palace. But at the end of the day, this is how Moya expresses itself. But the system came in and wanted to, what is the name of this thing? And wanted to bottle these things up together. If you can look at African languages, we don't have the term witchcraft.
Yeah.
The term witchcraft was only introduced, I think, in the Yoruba tradition when the colonizers started colonizing Africa, and they wanted to translate the Yoruba tradition and whatnot. But because you yourself, you understand that sometimes in African languages, we don't have specific words to describe certain things, because in us, we don't have names. Normally, we don't give things names. We describe them.
We describe them.
A name is normally descriptive of the function of whatever the object we're talking about. Yeah. So these people did not even know some of these words. They did not even know how to then pronounce them direct translation into English. And therefore, they then used something that was approximate to that. And that is when the terms were introduced into our society.
Yeah. Sure, that is very powerful. I think the viewers and everybody who's listening in our social media platform is actually getting a lot of education today. And I couldn't have chosen the better person to actually explain some of these terminologies and to alienate some of the skepticism that exists in our society and the fear of embracing our African culture and traditions. And also to know that the spirit is in us at all times. And we've got what Abantu today know as angels. And those are Abantu who are guiding us in the process, who are keeping us safe. And but we fail to recognize them for whatever reason that is.
So basically, the way we are so much failures, we entertain something, like I said, that constitutes 10% of, less than 10% of what makes you, and the very same huge percentage we disregard it.
Sure. This is crazy. I'm just very conscious of time, and it's just about maybe 3 minutes before 10 o'clock today. And I think that we've taken much of your morning. I know that you've got a lot of things that are going on. But just before we actually wrap this up, is there anything that you would want to say to the public about the traditional healers, or rather embracing our culture, something that will be beneficial for us to actually know and realize?
I've got a few things to say. Me being the problematic child that I am, I'm always controversial. So, yeah. If our practice is evil and we are witches, and this practice, it comes with our genealogy, and it comes with our bloodline, and it comes with our surnames. No amount of holy water or holy ash or holy prayers are going to save you from yourself, because you are a witch yourself.
Sure.
Because within you, you carry that information. You don't learn how to be a witch.
Yeah.
You are born a witch. You don't learn how to be a healer. You are born a healer. You are called to heal. That was the first controversy I wanted to get rid of the way. So if you are saying I'm a witch, look at yourself.
Sure. Just it means you need to look at yourself through the mirror, and then whatever you see on the mirror, that's
the only difference is that I know Indelezi and you don't.
Hey.
You understand the whole thing. But otherwise, in closing, we need to acknowledge, number one, like I said, that we live in the modern day society. But we need to acknowledge that our past have an influence on on our present. And therefore, what we decide to do in between these two spheres is going to determine our future. If we are going to go towards the direction of countries like China, in terms, now that we're talking about health, if we're going to go towards that, then it means we need to first go back to ourselves. We need to go back to the drawing board and find ourselves. After we have found ourselves, we need to then we must destroy in order to rebuild.
Yeah.
For you to come and sleep on your bed the next night, you must have made it. It must be completely clean from the mess of yesterday.
Correct.
So why these other ones, we just want to come and sleep on the mess? We agree that this system is a mess.
Yeah.
We agree it's a mess. Let's get rid of it.
Sure.
How do we get rid of this system? We first go back to ourselves. I look at you, I see myself. I look at you, I see the Gumedes on the side, I see your maternal side, people on your side. When I greet you with respect. Because I see a life that has been here for more than thousands and thousands of years. I see an information that has passed from generations to generations. I need to first acknowledge that. That's why when I greet doing it, cool. I don't greet. I greet those ones behind you. And from that, it means I will love you. It means I will respect you. It means I will first do no harm when I see you. Then after we've passed that stage, then we'll sit down and say, how do we then come with a system that is going to answer to the questions of today, but that is orientated towards culture?
Yeah.
And that will involve the questions of saying, do we then say, okay, let's take our herbs through rigorous processes of testing and studies. Let's take them through, you understand what I mean? Then now you see we're being relevant.
Yeah.
We're being conscious of the fact that we could have drug overdose.
Sure.
But we are also being conscious of the fact that science is available to help us do a thorough study on these practices that we are practicing, and therefore will provide services that are human and that are safe for human being and that are safe for human consumption.
Yeah, that was a very powerful statement to end our conversation today. Here, as you know, I'm sitting with Dr. Sangoma, well known in the social media platform, doctor and a Sangoma, or rather a doctor and a Sangoma at the same time. He says he
but
is
a Sangoma that turned the doctor.
Or a Sangoma that turned the doctor, whichever way you want it. But we'd like to take this opportunity and to appreciate your presence. And thank you very much for spending this hour with us this morning. I hope that our viewers in our social media platforms have enjoyed this conversation, and it is actually going to bring about education of how we see ourselves as the African people, but also to know that we can actually embrace both our culture and the health in its modern state at this moment. So thank you very much for joining us, and have a very good day. Togoza.
Bye bye.